Floppy Waffle 69 here, and for today's video, we are looking at the Tier 10, the crown of the branch of the USN Light Cruiser line, the USS Worcester. This is the final ship in our Down the Line series of the USS Worcester line, and rightfully so. Yes, there is the super ship, which is the USS Jacksonville, and I will get around to looking at super ships down the road, but right now, obviously, we are just solely focused on this line, and here we are at the USS Worcester. So what is the USS Worcester, guys, in a nutshell, right? Like, why would you play this thing? What is this? What is this thing going to be good at? What is it going to do? And you've learned, you've persevered through a bunch of ships. Each ship you've surpassed, it's taught you something new and something to apply. But what is this ship? Well, first off, this ship is tailored and advertised as like that quintessential support light cruiser in the game. It should be to no surprise going from, especially from like the Cleveland, Seattle to now this, that this thing with its immense consumable loadout is going to be able to fill many roles on the battlefield and be able to support ships of all classes. Battleships with AA and suppressing fire, with cruisers with AA and suppressing fire and intelligence data, and then obviously with DDs with suppressing enemy and neutralizing enemy destroyers, as well as again supporting with AA flak and DPM. This ship can do a lot. But one thing that you don't really see is like, why don't you see more of these played? And I think it's just more of a current state of the game rather than the ship itself. And I'll get into it down the road here a little bit about why I think this ship isn't actually played more so, and why I actually find her to be actually rather difficult to play. But basically, this ship, I think the Des Moines is just going to be a superior vessel. No question. I think heavy cruisers or in general are just superior in the game. I think players though that can outthink their opponents can do pretty damn well in light cruisers. But again, you're really at the mercy of so much at this game, especially with the prevalence of submarines and aircraft carriers. And then just the constant spotting from those classes is going to lead to the 4+ battleship games just absolutely destroying you and nuking you. Because as you know, as we're going to look here in just a few seconds, the armor on this ship is what you'd expect out of a light cruiser. It's not going to be that good when it comes to harder hitting ships like battle cruisers, large heavy cruisers, and obviously battleships, right? So then you're in a tier now that you can go against super ships, which again is in a whole league of their own. So. But like we always do, let's dig under the hood a little bit and talk a little bit more about the USS Worcester. So starting off, we're going to be looking at her armor, 25mm nose, 25mm ass, and then obviously superstructure is coming in at 13mm with a 30mm midsection deck or deck. Plating is 25mm as well, which is taking up a lot of her freeboard, with the Citadel plating or armor belt at 127mm. Again, pretty damn large Citadel. Funny thing to note is actually the Citadel does stretch from each turret to turret, but obviously the last two turrets, so that's 5 and 6, are completely submerged. So you're really not going to be landing in that Citadel, which really stops just past that fourth turret, but actually extends all the way to the first turret. So it's kind of an interesting Citadel arrangement they went with here. So again, kind of getting away with what the Helena and the Boise have, and the Dallas, I guess, a little bit, right? And that Citadel plating, because it doesn't go under their front turrets as much, it's just more midsection. Well, they decided at tier 10, like it's more of a balancing feature, we got to throw that under all the turrets. So just keep that in mind. This ship can get punished easily, as 127mm of effective armor is and more than enough to arm a lot of the shell fuses out there from other ships, right? So clocking in with her survivability, we actually have, I actually have signal flags mounted. I should go ahead and take those off. I should do that before I start the videos. I forget, honestly. I'm just too excited and horny to get these videos out there for you guys. But the health pool is coming in at 45,400. Not terrible in the grand scheme of things when we go to like all ships at tier 10 cruisers. I believe that the biggest health pool of this, I guess, tier 10 is going to the Stalingrad at 72,450, and the smallest going to the Kitakami at 28,500. So when you look at the Worcester, we're like dead center in there around a lot of ships at tier 10, a lot of ships. We're looking at like the 40s, I believe, like amount of tier 10 cruisers there are. And again, they have duplicates on here, so I'm sorry, like the Expolensk B and shit like that. But I think we're at like 20 something in regards of where the the Worcester's coming in at for her health pool. So not bad. But now we actually get some decent torpedo protection damage. Again, in the grand scheme of things too, when we're looking at other cruisers at this tier, we have the Hildebrand, which has the highest at 37, Sevastopol at 34, and the lowest again having 0 with some ships like the Colbert, Sve, Smolensk, and Kitakami. We're actually bypassing a lot of ships at this tier that you'd think would have. The Des Moines only has 7, which is interesting. Monmouth has 13. And we finally are up there with like the likes of the Ultrich, the Zau, and the Worcester and Sybaris, and Alexander Nevsky having 19%. And there's a couple other too that I don't want to go into all of those. I just want to kind of illustrate some other cruisers that are sharing that torpedo protection. Which this is like a big jump here, and I'm not necessarily sure why they went with this jump. You shouldn't be taking torpedoes anyways, but this is going to help alleviate some of that stress in regards of taking one torpedo here or there. But yeah, interesting choice. Moving to the artillery, 6x2 152 millimeter guns. And on a quick side note here, just like the Seattle, we don't have any secondary mounts. What you see is what you get. So keep that in mind. With the reload mod in slot 6 that I recommend taking, you get 4-second reload. 180 degree turn time is 8.3 seconds. This is why in my captain skill, I actually don't opt to take the expert marksman skill for the extra turret traverse. I don't think you really need it. I think it'd be more overkill compared to like the Seattle that definitely fucking needs it. And then maximum range, which is crazy, is 16.7. I don't understand why a light cruiser has more than some heavy cruisers, looking at you, Des Moines, for example, but they went with this. Interesting choice, right? And a side note with some of the turrets, obviously with 360 degrees, Wargaming did make some changes to this ship, as you're going to see on screen up here. Bing. The 5 and 6 turret I believe, is 360 degrees, while that 4th turret remains 180, and I believe 1, 2, and 3 as well can turn 360 in the front of the ship. This is going to allow for a little bit more flexibility when pushing in, making sure that all turrets are on bear at a target. I believe they did fix the unintentional bug of giving the Worcester worse firing angles that it already has. But this leads into my big point about the Worcester and why you don't see it played as frequently and why I believe it's kind of hard. So as you know, going into the high explosive and the armor piercing damage, we have 220 raw HE like alpha strike potential, like maximum damage with a 12% fire and a 30 millimeter HE penetration for its HE and 3200 for its armor piercing. Now, the reason why I don't think that these ships are played very much or less frequently than others is the turret layout of the ship with these 6x2 152 millimeter guns, the way that they're laid out on the vessel. To get use of all these, I guess, turrets to put them on bear, it's going to be hard with the way the angles of the turrets are. I think it's 34 degrees to get them all out facing forward, which is going to be more than enough to expose the citadel. And especially with those rear turrets, again, like the way they are and showing it, you're going to have to show a decent amount of side for me. It's definitely not comfortable at times. So realistically, if I sit here and I tell you guys with the HE shells that, oh, hey, by the way, for the main battery, you're looking at HE 344,348, which is ranked, I think, 4th among all light cruisers at tier 10, and 500,000 AP DPM. Realistically, like how much you're actually getting off per, how much DPM you're actually taking advantage of because your turret layout, you have to be showing, a decent amount of side to be getting all these turrets off and on target. Relatively speaking, I believe you're most likely going to be getting 3 turrets off at most. And as you can see too, when you're in closer ranges, this number 2 turret can't shoot over this front turret. I can't give you exact kilometer distance that is. I want to say it's like sub 7 kilometers, but I'm, again, cutting your DPM down even further. So your positioning is gonna be key when it comes to the Worcester in order to make this DPM actually like effective hitting DPM. And that's why I don't think it's played as frequently, is because positioning is hard, especially in random battles with teammates that you're not on voice chat with. It does struggle in my opinion. Now, when you're in a division, and smoke screens can be laid for you, this ship dominates. And that's why I think that's when you get to see her mostly, is when you see this ship played in divisions. But outside of divisions, I rarely see this ship played, which is sad because I think it's a very fun ship and a good ship to play if you can take advantage of it and your team knows what they're doing. And obviously the Worcester commander knows what they're doing too and can take advantage of how to play the ship as well and put it in certain situations. So pretty generic terminology to say that for most ships, but especially with the Worcester, because of her turret arrangement, I find that is why players just don't really queue up in her, and they're just going to be easier ships to play, personally. So we get our airstrikes, 2 flights, thank God. A, defenses. Continuous damage of 385. We have it broken down onto the screen here again with I think our long range, which goes 6.9 kilometers. We're raking in at 123. Medium at 4 kilometers with 391, and 2 kilometers at 122, giving us a flat count 5+1 with the commander skill, which is 6. The AA, again, it's good. It will act as a little bit of a turns for you because most CV captains won't really know how to deal with it because, it is a light show when defensive AA is going for sure. But if you're smart and you know how to, reconcile your planes and how to make sure you maintain your squadrons, and know like how much they can take, like, and how to dodge flak, you could still strike this thing and deal catastrophic damage to it, and keep it spotted for your allies to go ahead and nuke because that's how the game is right now. So really, again, theoretically, it's not going to deter good CV players. Yes, they will suffer some losses, but they can easily manage that if they are a competent aircraft carrier commander, sadly. So sad because back in the day, this thing would be an absolute plane shredding machine. Nowadays, it's a shell of its former self, sadly. So, not saying it can't shoot down planes. I'm just saying how it is right now in the meta. So, maneuverability for the ship is clocking in at 33 knots as a top speed with an 8-point run rudder shift and a turning circle radius of 740 meters. I have attempted, to me, the rudder shift time is pretty high on this vessel. With that turning circle radius of 740 meters, I don't like the way it handles. It does feel kind of clunky. So I actually did try out a couple times of switching around in that slot 5, dropping concealment and taking the rudder shift, mod 3, I think it's called. And it got down to like 4.9 or something crazy, which was awesome. And that felt super, super comfortable. The problem is with 10.9 kilometer detection in this ship, it got hard to really play because you are spotted more frequently. And again, when you're spotted more frequently without you getting chosen when and when not to be spotted, you become a instant target code red for a lot of these battleships because they know the HE power that this thing holds and they want to eliminate you fast, which they can very much do. So it's one of those weird things. I tried it. I still wouldn't recommend that just because you're going to get more consistent results out of a concealment build than you would be if you're going that way with like a full lighthouse build. And while I'm on the note of that, I'll talk to you about the concealment, and then I'll talk to you about some other various captain builds that are known throughout the community, tried them, and what my takes are on them, right? Detectability range of the ship is actually 12.6. You get it down to 10.9 with the concealment in slot 5, and then with the commander you get it down to 9.8, which is super comfortable. That will allow you to have a 800-meter gap between your radar and your ship being detected, which is more than enough to catch when you're sailing a straight line. DDs are scaling and they both, you spot, the DD spots you. When you pop your radar, that DD will basically be flat broadsided up to you, and you'll be able to then spot him with your radar proc, and you'll be able to farm him, hopefully, which is I guess interesting and fun, right? It's definitely, there are ships that have stealth radar. I don't think stealth radar is particularly healthy for the game, but this ship would greatly improve on that, having the ability to do that. Do I think it needs that? No, I don't think from a balancing standpoint, because as I play other classes, I 100% don't think stealth radar is fair in this game. So I'm glad that there is a decent gap between when it, radared and when ships can be spotted based upon its, or the ship can be spotted based upon its base detection values. So just my opinion, but I can see as like the cruiser enthusiast that I am, that'd be great. Like the Minotaur levels of radar, that'd be sick. But I'm glad like the Mino had, like the one thing the Mino should have. I get it. I like that because then it keeps people guessing, well, is it smoke? Was it radar? Right. So, but yeah, so now I'm going to go over some captain builds of the ship. Just because I think it's fair to talk about, and then I'll go ahead and talk about the ledge mod a little bit with some builds, and then we will go ahead and show you some gameplay winners. So, let's talk about the kind of the build I have here first. I usually don't do that, but for the tier 10, I feel like it's especially necessary to kind of illustrate what I'm thinking when I'm building my ship. Obviously, with the AA and its ability to shoot down some aircraft, you actually feel like you're doing like tier 8 aircraft carriers. Don't even fly anywhere near this thing. You will lose your planes nonstop. Tier 10 and super carriers, if you're smart, you can play your cards right and you can still do well against this thing. Okay, that's what it takes because your planes aren't automated. My AA is. So again, as long as you have manual control, you're always going to be able to outplay an automated system, usually, right? And especially in this game, you will be able to. But yeah, I just up my AA survivability. Like obviously, that's what I believe. That's what I do. What I recommend. But I can easily see why main armaments mod 1 is more in favor. You want to keep your turrets online. I get it. Don't worry. I understand. No brainer, in my opinion, for the surveillance radar. This mod will extend your action time by 20%. So I'm going up to 52.8. And again, with the, what is it? The legendary mod, I believe it helps with the cooldown. I don't think it extends the duration, right? I'm not 100% sure. I'll look into that. I'll make sure I touch on that too here in a little bit because I'm already on the upgrade section. Aiming systems mod 1, even if you're doing a full AA build, I really don't think your priority sector preparation time is worth overtaking in regards of the aiming systems. Guns that are always double barreled in this game, I find have worse dispersion than guns that are tripled or quad. Or even single mounted. I really feel like double barrel, again, it could just be me and the way I am, kind of like how I am with the triple torpedo launchers versus the quad torpedo launchers. It's just something to do with the dispersion mechanics of the ship. I just feel like they're kind of wonky, and that's why I'd still recommend aiming systems, because when you catch ships off guard, like destroy, especially DDs, like the Jaeger, that's freaking the floating jet ski, you're going to want to make sure that you land your shells and do that effective damage and make sure that it's worth putting yourself in those situations to raid on, get incoming fire at you, and make sure you trade some HP and take a lot of HP away from these DDs, right? So in the fourth slot, because of the play style of the ship, I would highly recommend Propulsion Mod 1 because you're going to be stopping and going in smoke screens, behind islands, that sort of thing. Though I can understand if you're a player and you don't really care about the I guess, so to speak, the island camping play style, and you want to make sure you can get all your guns to bear and then go back like and dodge actively in open water. Steering gears mod 1, I get it. I feel you. That's why I did in slot 5 one time. I tried steering gears mod 2 and I dropped the concealment entirely, and fuck, did it handle great. It felt great, but at the end of the day, you are spotted longer and more ships, especially in a battleship heavy meta, and I guess more when you're playing cruiser, more like battle cruiser, heavy cruiser meta. It's not really going to help you that much per se. And I think this concealment's going to be just flat out better. So, and then again, in the 6th slot, main battery mod 3, you want to up your DPM, boys. You want to get it up there. The other one, you don't need to extend your range any more than it already is. Your shells are already way too floaty. It's just going to be trolling yourself and trolling the opponents if you do that. It's really not worth it. And then again, this would be great because it does AA, but the secondary battery reload time, you won't even get effect of that. If you really hate aircraft carriers, I understand this as a meme build. As a division, if you have like an Essex, U, and then a DD or whatever it is, I totally get building for full AA because you know you're going to be in an AA game. Outside of that, if you're just playing random solo or whatever, you're going to want to just do more of a standard DPM because that's your damage dealers, your guns, and if you're neutering that, you're going to hinder your ability on the battlefield. All right, now we're going to talk legendary mod, and I'll make sure I mention this in game too. So I actually have used the legendary mod. I've played multiple games in her, and I actually rather do like the legendary mod with specific builds. As you could see before, it'll add 1 to your ship's consumable. It'll lower your A preparation sector time by 20%, and all ship consumable preparations and reload time reduced by 20%. So let's go over what this means. So +1 to all ship consumables, that is 6 defensive AAs, that is 5 radars, that is 5 heals, that is 5 hydros. That is awesome, because realistically, it'll increase your survivability because you're adding another heal, right? As a light cruiser, that is huge, that is awesome. Another radar is huge, that is awesome. The priority sector of AA, that completely overshadows the take and the use of the aiming systems mod 1 in slot 3, so again, big upgrade. I totally see why you do that. And then ship consumable preparation time minus 20% is huge. So your radar is going from like what, 120 seconds cooldown time to like almost like what, 100-ish around there, just over, just under for seconds. Like again, massive heals, massive. Your damage control party when dealing with submarine and shit reduced. Like all this stuff is reduced. Again, very viable in my opinion. The problem with taking this, because it goes in slot 6, is you will actively be neutering your DPM. And one thing you're going to hear me preach when it comes to random solo is because you have no secondaries, you have no torpedoes, you are solely gun focused, as ships should be in regards of like their main damage dealers. You're actively hindering and neutering your ability to deal effective damage and reliable damage down range, and it's going to be hurting your game performance. I think it goes from like 4-second reload to either 4.6, 4.8, or 5.2. One of those three numbers. I don't really remember what it is. Which might not seem like a lot at first. You're like, well, the Des Moines reloads in 5.5, and then you really get the reload mod, it's 4.8. So like, why does this matter? Again, it doesn't. But as a light cruiser with the turret layout, how many turrets are you going to actually be shooting down range? You're going to have to position yourself. Yeah. So basically, the main reason I would use enhanced countermeasures is if I am playing in a division in random battles, or I'm playing clan battles or ranked. Even ranked's kind of iffy because there's not any voice chat that's going on there. You want to coordinate with your allies, and that is when the enhanced countermeasures comes into play, because the bonuses that you're giving to your ship are mainly giving it to your team. The AA, yes, that'll help your team. The ship consumable and preparation time, that is a big help to your team, and you for a little bit. And then your ship consumables, that is massive because you go from 4 to 5 charges of a lot of your shit. Plus, you're going to be getting another heal as well, which is mainly going to be helping you, but helping your team as well because it's going to keep you in the fight longer. So it's basically just a team-oriented upgrade that I would highly recommend if you're playing with allies, that this is the way to do it. You are going to be neutering your reload. But then I think the trade is worth it, and I think you should play around with it every now and then and see if you like it. So it's definitely a ledge mod that I do endorse and I do consider that you pick up because of what it can offer, as it does change not necessarily the play style of the ship, but it can change the way your team approaches certain situations and how you handle it, basically. So that it is a very ultimate team-focused upgrade. And that's going to go into some of my captain builds, and this is like the generic one I do with the AA. There's a lot of things you could play around with the Worcester. For me, like you could definitely take RPF. You can consider taking inertia fused high explosives, though I personally don't recommend that. And I'll talk about that first, why I don't recommend taking inertia fused high explosives. Okay, one, if you take inertia fused, it's really all it's going to be doing is going from 30 millimeters of armor penetration, I believe, is it like 36 or 34? I think it's 34. What does this basically mean? Well, it means the vast majority, or is it 38? It might be 38. What the fuck am I smoking? I'm not 100% sure. I think it's like 30. If it's 38, it'll help you in some regards. Basically, the reason you take inertia fused high explosives, and enough of that shit, just forget that whole last shit I said. The main reason you take inertia fused high explosives is because you want to be focused more on penetrating and doing raw damage to targets rather than relying on RNGesus Christ in order to ignite fires on ships. And I totally understand the viability, and I believe it is 38 millimeters of penetration you'll get. You'll get plus 8 millimeters of penetration. And what is that threshold? Well, that's a lot of decks on American battleships, I believe. Same with, like, I think the Conqueror and Republic, ships like that. But ships, in my opinion, that you're already doing decent amount of damage because of their immense superstructures. So it's like you'll be racking up more damage, but you're completely neutering your fire chance in half. And if my chance to cause fires is 13 plus the flags getting up to 14, I'm going that down to 7. I don't know. Like, to me, as a light cruiser, it's something that really distinguishes it, and it's one of the best DPM light cruisers in the game. And I really don't want to hinder my fire chance with the HE. Another really good cruiser that has DPM is the Minotaur. It has short fused AP on it, right? It has no HE, it has no damage over time ability. So why would I neuter a distinguishing factor other than just to pick up raw damage on my ship? For me, it's not worth it. I do have friends who have played with that. I have personally tried that build, and I don't really like it. I set plenty of fires reliably with the Worcester, and I don't need inertia fuse to help neuter that just to pick up more penetration to crush thresholds that I already feel comfortable with because I'm hitting those same battleships and doing mass amounts of damage to superstructure anyways. I really don't need to pick up that extra penetration, personally. Just my opinion. Another build that I've seen that everyone should know, and it's actually the inspiration that led to the Vallejo, the Tier 9 steel cruiser, was a range mod Worcester. No. Okay. For meme purposes, for you, for the team, I understand it. It's funny. Going at what is it, like 19 kilometers, something ridiculous. 18, 19 kilometers. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but it's insane. And then I've seen people on top of that do spotter plane because you're fucking stupid. Don't do that. But you're just hurting yourself. You're not going to be landing shells on target. That the floaty shell velocity of the ship, as you all know, it goes and touches, it kisses the moon, and then comes back and hits the target. It doesn't make sense to do that, guys. And you're going to be neutering your DPM. And in that case, you'd just be better off taking enhanced countermeasures because I feel like you're going to do better with that legendary mod anyway. So just don't take range mod. To me, there is one choice, or actually there's two, which would be main battery mod 3 as your first choice, and your second choice, if you have it at your disposal, enhanced countermeasures. Just me though. But that is like the meme build that the Worcester has been known for, and that inspired the Vallejo with her rapid fire spotter aircraft and doing that kind of like far range. But again, her shell velocity is so much better than the Worcester's, so again, it's viable. The Worcester is very, very floaty shell, so it's not really that viable. So just my opinion. So this was a long little walkthrough here in the port screen. I apologize that, but I think everything I talked about is necessary, especially if you guys do sit through this and listen to what I have to say. This is coming from a lot of games, a lot of experience in competitive and just randoms. So I kind of know what I'm talking about when it comes to the Worcester and playing her. I really can endorse that. So hopefully now I can go ahead and shed some light on how to play her and kind of show it more in game for you guys. So let's go ahead and get into the raw gameplay footage. Alrighty guys, and here we are in the first of two battles I'm going to be showing you. Yep, 2 for 1 today, gentlemen. I usually don't show two battles. Usually I just want to show one battle because I think it highlights enough of what I'm trying to say, what I was trying to say or preach in port, and apply it in the battle. But I felt like, you know what the hell? It's going to show you a lot for multiple things. One, both these games are not very impressive. I don't believe they're that impressive, but I think they showcase and highlight the general consensus of how to play the ship. Now, one thing I want to address as well, you guys could be like, well, if they're not very impressive, then why are you showing us the game? Like, don't you think like aren't there better ways? Like if you don't know, like if you're not getting that like really good results, like do you know how to play the ship? Like I don't know if I trust you. Well, this is my thing. If you are comparing me to someone who plays solely this game, who streams this game, who doesn't play any other video games and only plays this one and has a 75% win rate in divisions and a 67% win rate in solo randoms, like great. That's not even encompassing for maybe 1% of the player base, and I'm trying to appease to more of a broader audience. And that's not to knock them. I mean, it's incredible. I tip my hat to those players, and they know who they are, and I'm sure the general community knows who I'm talking about when it comes to them. Um, but the likelihood of the player base ever really achieving levels of that is so slim and minute that I think they're doing a disservice trying to set a precedence like that's what's normal. And it's not. And I've watched a lot of these videos too, and I don't think they really highlight or like do a good job teaching you of how to play these vessels, and that's where I try to change myself and distinguish myself. They do more of a job of just highlighting and promoting their own gameplay and footage so that you can tune in to them and subscribe, blah, blah, and so and so. Again, if you like that, that's fine. Maybe this isn't the channel for you. I do a decent job of that, but I want to do more about the teaching side of things because I've really been trying to find some YouTubers out there that really want to teach. And I think back in the day, there were some good ones that really did and break down ships. But more or less, I've seen kind of a steady decline of those sort of educators. And I kind of said, you know what? I did this mainly to start for my clan mates and my friends. And, you know, they said, why don't you take this to the next level? And I said, you know what, I'll shoot my shot, right? And go ahead and try to take the reins and see if I can help people that are struggling or want to just improve their gameplay overall, right? And that's what I'm trying to do with this Down the Line series too, is to illustrate kind of what you're getting each tier and kind of go ahead and coach and teach you guys up the tech tree as well. Again, these are just my opinions. They've worked for me, and I seem like I'm pretty average Joe when it comes to this game. And I hopefully to share some of my tips and tricks with you guys is kind of what I'm trying to do. So, Rule one, my number one tip, and we've learned this from the beginning of the line, Omaha to a degree, but more so I'd say the Dallas and up, is you want to sail towards an island and you want to hug that island. The islands usually are scattered around contention points or objectives, and that's where you find myself right here. I'm going to utilize this island with my prop mod 1 in that 4th slot, which is going to allow me to start and stop 50% sooner. And faster, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play with my throttle, and I'm going to see if I can get all my guns to bear, because this is how, doing this playstyle, you are more inclined and likely to utilize all your guns on target, like I'm doing on this Miasma, and get the maximum use out of your raw HE and AP DPM. That's what I think is the way to play the ship. There are times that you're going to have to open water. I get that. I think I do highlight that more in the second video potentially, but I'm not 100% sure. I played this ship so many times, guys, to try to find footage for everybody, and it's crazy. Not that necessarily that I did or got bad results. It's more so to try to find games worth showing, because a lot of the games were either blowouts that I did not that much and our team was really, really good, or I did really, really good, but our team got blown out in return. It's like, I don't really want to showcase those battles. I want to showcase more battles that, you know, people can understand where I'm trying to talk about, what I'm trying to preach. Obviously, here's a prime example of 2 light cruisers going at it. Both have slight different play styles, but generally try to achieve the same purpose. And you could see that my flat-out HE DPM compared to his short-fused AP that he has, you know, he has 16 guns, I have 12, but my reload time being faster, and just, again, HE being a more consistent ammo choice, you can see that I set a double fire, he put it out, and I go ahead and relight him again for 2 fires, so he is clicking and ticking down with HE, and eventually I believe the fires are going to neutralize him and take him out of the game, and I will claim my first kill of the game just because of that. Your DPM is scary, and that is why I don't recommend taking IFHE, because if I would have taken IFHE, it wouldn't have crossed any meaningful thresholds that I wasn't already crossing against the Plymouth. And a matter of fact, I don't think I would have killed him. He would have achieved his smoke screen and gotten to his smoke screen, and he would have been able to farm another heal while staying alive and using his guns to farm either me or various other allied ships on my team. So that's, again, why I recommend not taking IFHE. And if you do take IFHE, I understand what you're thinking. I get it. But just understand, like, for example, like that, you might not come out killing the Plymouth, which a Plymouth is a very, very scary ship if played well, especially when contesting caps, as it also can apply a smoke screen to act as a concealment barrier to its radar that it has. Really scary stuff. You know, one thing I never well, not that I really didn't touch on, but one thing that I kind of touched on briefly in port and then didn't really touch more on is the turret arrangement of the ship. Wargaming, obviously, like I said, we showed that, they illustrated, they did take some buffs not only to the Worcester, but to the entire line, and they thought that the Worcester of everything here needed 360-degree turrets. I am definitely welcoming the change. There is no problem to that. To me, a big change they could have done with this particular ship, there are 2 things that I think they could do to buff this ship. And again, my opinion after playing copious amount of hours, and I'm trying to differentiate my cruiser main bias, illicit bias that I have, and kind of just like raw looking at the gameplay as it is in total and realizing what's good for the game, what's not. The first thing they could do with this ship is they could make the gun-firing angles just even a little bit more better than they are, because they're really not that good, so to speak, per se. I would like to see them a little bit better, make it allow us to utilize the guns easier to put them on target, therefore increasing the ship's ability to utilize more of its guns, and actually take use of that HE and AP DPM that the ship does have, which is quite substantial. Back then, I understand the way the game was, but where we are now, I think we've progressed enough where I think this could be easily implemented into the game, right? In my opinion. Another thing, I would like to see the concealment get reduced from 9.8, like full stealth rigged, with concealment slot 5 and the concealment captain perk upgraded from 9.8 to 9.5. This will allow it, again, so it can't physically stealth radar, but you have a smaller gap between when you're spotted to being when you can radar and spot what's spawning you. I think a really good distinguishing feature for the American light cruisers could be that they don't have stealth radar, but they do have the ability that once they're spotted, you have about 200, 300 meters, give or take, between that 300-meter gap to 500-meter gap before radar's coming to spot whoever's spotting them. It'll give them even more team utility and a little bit more survivability, as then they don't just sit there going, well, do I turn out or do I keep going in and charge down what this thing is? And decisions are having to be made. Like, I understand the argument, well, dude, like, that's stupid. Like, there's DDs, we have radar. I get it, man. I get it. There's a lot of radar. And I think that Gdansk really fucked over the DD player base with that, though. It's shorter radar. You could sort of play around it, but then you have ships like the Småland, even the Black that can apply its own smoke screen, like stuff like that. Like, I understand, but I would really like to see cruisers fulfill more of their roles. And I think a lot of people just don't get access to that because they just simply don't know how to play their ship. I'm not saying this ship is weak. I don't want everyone to get confused with that. Even if they don't implement my proposed buffs to the ship, as I don't think they're going to do, because they recently just buffed the entire line top down. Even if they don't do that, which I don't think they're going to do, the ship can still be, and even in my opinion, is still a good ship. But what would make it a great ship, like phenomenal ship in my opinion, are the changes that I listed, just because I'm trying to think what else they could do. I mean, yes, you could sit there and say, well, the AA. Well, yeah, I agree with that. That's kind of a no-brainer, but I think it's not necessarily the ship AA that needs to be buffed. More or less, the AA kind of needs more of a soft buff in general, and apply different rules and coding to what we have in game, because the AA is just very inconsistent as it's an automated system, and I would like us to have some way to feel like we can sway engagements in our, in our, I guess, the way, like, towards the surface ship, rather than solely being always on the carrier's time. And it's tough. It's a tough situation. I get it. But fuck, we've endured for how many years? Like, I'd love to see it. Um, so, one thing that I'd never mentioned too on the ship, I think I mentioned a little bit on the Seattle, but I guess I'm going to go ahead and mention it on the Worcester, is the ASW with the AA skills that you're taking for the commander, you are buffing your depth charge damage to like something insane, like 5,200 damage, which is basically dropping Royal Navy destroyer and Royal Navy cruiser depth charge, the hard-hitting depth charges, from the air. And wow, dude, like, these things fucking slap. So if you do the build that I proposed and subs happen to spot up and you predict accurately where they are going to be sailing, you will devastate. If you land 2 direct charges, that's already 10k damage, which is basically 3/4 or more of HP of a lot of subs out there, which is a blast. So I definitely do recommend that, and that gets 2 thumbs way up high from me as someone who loves hunting submarines, and giving them what they deserve. So first game, 139,000 damage, not bad. Good result. 11 fires, which is not bad at all. Moving on into the second game here, we find ourselves in fucking what, I don't even know what this is, like not Northern Waters. It's that other map. Is it the Faroe Islands? Maybe it's the Faroe Islands. That's what it is. And again, we're trying to execute what I recommended again from the beginning, which is we're going to sail towards the island, and we're going to utilize that island to lob our floatier shells over top while remaining undetected in return. And I believe we're going to get good results in this battle. Again, we're supporting our destroyer with our radar and our high rate of fire. Any destroyer caught within this 9-kilometer radar range, especially as long as it can last anywhere between 45 seconds to 52.8 with the surveillance mod put on this thing, and obviously extending the radar time as well, the duration, right, with all that kind of stuff, and the recharge time and all that stuff. Yeah, this thing is scary. Again, when you are very brazen and overconfident in your super cruiser like Indianapolis, and you just come around broadside, use your burst fire mode, why not switch to the armor piercing? The armor piercing on the Worcester, I didn't touch on it. As you know, the whole line was clocking in with that 0.0110 second fuse time. The Worcester actually goes back up to 0.025 second fuse time, which again I believe is in line with standard cruisers of 152 millimeter armament or armed cruisers at this tier, and most tiers. I think that's pretty standard. Um, Again, what does that mean? I believe it means less armor has to be penetrated in order for the fuse to detonate. Um, it'll basically just detonate. Now it's going to detonate a little bit longer. It has to penetrate a little bit more armor in order to detonate, whereas the other .0110 can penetrate less armor is required in order for the fuse to detonate. It's just that sort of thing. Um, and then talking over with the armor penetration of the ship, we'll go out to its maximum range. You're looking at with the AP only 100 millimeters, which isn't really that impressive. But again, when you'll be mainly using this thing, like for example, that engagement with the Annapolis around 9, 10 kilometers, you are packing about 153 to 142 millimeters of penetration, depending around there, which again is enough to potentially Citadel ships if they are flat broadside. But slightly, if they're going to be slightly angled, I would say that's when I would factor in the armor piercing at those ranges. Um, because again, the slower shell velocity on the AP isn't really going to be putting a damper on much in regards to the aiming of the ship. Um, so you could definitely, it's going to feel very comfortable to use in regards if you're already getting comfortable with the HE. Um, Again, another tip I have with the Worcester, and this is not only pertaining to the Worcester line, the Worcester, or this could be used to any ship that has floatier shells. Get used to zooming out one notch on your mouse. Um, it's going to allow you to aim easier and just raw like flat better in my opinion than staying fully zoomed in when instead you're leading targets at max range off your screen rather than now you can still see the ship just smaller, right, like target wise. When you zoom out, it's just going to make things a lot easier for you, so definitely start training yourself to do that with floatier shelled ships. It's just going to make your overall gaming experience just way better, and you're going to be landing most likely more shells. I believe the dynamic crosshair as well just does this automatically based upon range. Not 100% sure though. I don't use it. I don't like it in my opinion. Um, but it is something that I think that already does for you as well. Again, we are kiting away a tactic that you will see me use in a lot of my cruisers, even ones like this, like your light cruisers or island. I want to make sure I can utilize all my DPM, and I want to make sure that I can utilize this island as much coverage as possible. And based upon where I was, I really couldn't stop and fire over this oddly shaped island, so that's why I'm just allowing myself to kind of open water in this thing and try to do my best with it. And it, again, can be done. If you know where enemy threats are, like big battleships like the Yamato, like the Georgia, I know where their guns are facing, and with the incoming fire alert skill, I know when a sub was fired at my vicinity and my direction, and I can angle accordingly. Um, as a cruiser player, I can definitely say you're is one of those classes you're going to have to keep your head on a swivel because at any given time you can just get swacked out of existence, which the Worcester is fully capable of doing. Um, that salvo actually had me a little brown alert moment there. I'm not gonna lie. I think his aim was just off. He didn't lead me appropriately, and I did what I always do, and I'll stop and slow down and turn out. And I almost basically had that salvo turn out right in my ass, and most likely would have been Citadel. So, as you saw, the Citadel, you can easily be Citadeled from the front and the back, as there's only, what, 25 millimeters of effective armor through there, which, again, 460s can go right through that, no problem. And then you have the 127 millimeter actual Citadel belt that this thing has. Not incredibly hard to go through either. So, the Worcester certainly isn't armored well against anything higher than a heavy cruiser. I think again, other light cruisers, this ship has decent armor, like comparatively, right? But again, with HE and the penetration, they're going to be getting full pens. Most likely, you'll be getting full pens on them. And then, in order to make use of your raw DPM with this thing, you're going to be showing enough side where the Citadel and getting Citadel is more prominent and I guess easier to be had to you. And that's why, like, again, in my opinion, arch nemesis of this thing is like the Minotaur, the Plymouth. Things with those short fused APs are really going to make quick work of the Worcester because as a player, I understand the aggressiveness to want to open up in order to utilize all your guns. You're going to have to fight the urge and know that, hey, I really can't get away with that because I'm going to get Citadel and lose this engagement relatively quick. You're going to have to stay angled in and only utilize 1 to 2, maybe 3 of your guns on target at a time based upon where you are in like range wise. But yeah, they are a big nemesis to you. Big nemesis. You're gonna have to be careful. If you're not fighting on your terms, you are at a big disadvantage with the Worcester. That is just a freaking fact, just a flat out fact. So this ship certainly does scream team utility and team play as you can give it to a lot of your teammates. But in return for this ship really to excel, you're going to need your teammates to support you. That's why they always, say like American ships, oh, be around your allies and support and so and so. Well, the problem is you really can't rely on your teammates a whole lot unless they're in a division with you. And it is random battles after all. So the likelihood of having someone that's like, you know what, I don't really care about damage. I care about winning. I don't know, man. It's really rare. People say they want to win, but then they do selfish maneuvers in farm or sniping in their battleships or don't contest caps, and it's like, well, then obviously you don't because you're not practicing what you're preaching, and it's tough. Everybody acts like they're ship Jesus. Everybody acts like they're um, Nostradamus and can see the future and predict it and like know this game in and out. And relatively no, I don't think anyone really does. Even myself, I'm making videos and trying to create guides. Like I'm still learning different maneuvers and tactics. But I'm just trying to share what's worked for me and allowed me to become a Unicum player and allowed me to play and and do as well as I do, and share that with the general population of the game. I don't want to act like a know-it-all. I'm certainly not. I'll flat out say that. But I do like to think I know more than like the average player at WoWs. And again, to help other players is what I really want to do, because I believe if even my video can help sub 2, 3, 5% of the player base, that's more players allowing to have to be more competent and play the game and enjoy the game more and keep our game alive, because it really is a fun game. I love this game. I've created friendships. I've gotten closer to family members. Just everything about it. It's just I love the game, and that's why I hate to see certain decisions being made. And obviously, on a little bit of a side tangent, I try to stay away from like rants and whatnot about certain ships, about certain happenings. I don't really touch on that stuff because I think this game has enough drama surrounding it. I don't need to add more and be another YouTuber categorized and like, oh, what the fuck is this, blah, blah. When it comes to balancing decisions, absolutely. But when it comes to, PR decisions, when it comes to how ships are sold and all that, like, yeah, I'll tell you, I think this is a horseshit price and I wouldn't pay for it. But I'm not going to go any more than that. It's not my place. I don't want to do anything or say anything with that. So. But enough about the side tangent. As we're wrapping up this game, you can see our team did really well on our flank, and we're heading over to the other flank, who I guess did more of like the stalemate, trying to hold them. There's always a pushing and always like more of a hold flank. We happen to be on the pushing flank, and I think teammates did their job and played really, really well. The biggest thing I like to see when I'm playing a cruiser are battleship players that are not afraid to take damage and take that damage off of me, because that allows me to help them out in return and help our DDs, which you keep our DDs alive, you'll win games. That's a fact. I go ahead and I eliminate strategic targets starting with enemy destroyers. That increases your chances of winning substantially. And I think the Worcester is an excellent ship in doing that. When my battleships decide I don't like taking damage and I can't tank, like God forbid I have 100,000 HP, but if I take 10,000 damage, that is what the hell, man, I'm out of here. I'm running. Can't take this. Like, you're just hurting the team and you're not allowing me to do my job, which therefore the destroyer is isolated and dies. And then we're at a disadvantage right then and there. And then if I get dev struck and nuked, it's like, well, there goes radar. It's kind of a tumbling effect. And as much as I would say, well, we all know DD players have the most pull in the game, and cruisers have like the ability to be the widest, most diverse class in the game, and battleships have the most brain dead class in the game. They all synergize with each other, and it's more of a tumbling effect. And if you're only as strong as your weakest link, and that is very, very true when it comes to this game. So as a cruiser player, you're gonna need especially with the Worcester here, you're gonna need your battleship players to tank for you. Because if other ships are distracted shooting someone else, that is when I can utilize my HE DPM. That is when I can go broadside or more so, 34 degrees, and get all my turrets to bear, just absolutely letting it rain HE on the target, raidering enemy destroyers, raidering enemy smoke screens, and pushing them out, spying those light cruisers so our battleships can dev strike them, that sort of thing. It's all teamwork. And I can't sit here and say, oh, team, because at the end of the day, if people don't want to play as a team, which they usually don't, then they're not going to play as a team, and you're basically smacking your head against a brick wall. Good example of the armor piercing here as cruisers that we are in range to get citadels on flat broadsides. Example, definitely make use of that. The armor piercing it can be strong at close ranges against cruisers like that. So definitely do that. You want to press that 2 key when you get in close ranges like this, guys, for sure. But the bread and butter of your ship is going to be high explosives, as you've been seeing up and down this whole line. So to wrap things up here, as we're getting towards the end of the video, guys, my opinion on the Worcester is it's a blast. Super fun ship. I love her to death. One of my favorite cruisers in the game, and I always gravitate to her and play her a lot. So just remember the tips that I laid out for you guys, and you should be getting good results in her in the random queue. And just bringing it back to port here to finish kind of what I was saying, because I don't want to rush the video and create a ship product for you guys. I really want to take a deep dive into the ship and talk about her. I do think she gets labeled, too many labels in the game. One, I've heard people say that she's just really not that good. She's outdated. She's been power crept to hell. She just doesn't really have a place right now. And there's just better ships for you to, basically to play. And I don't necessarily think there's better ships. I think the main reason why the ship is in its state is because there's other ships that just do similar to what it's doing and just easier. It's easier to play. They're more forgiving. And the Worcester just takes more hands-on, I guess, skill and knowledge of the game to play well. And I think it's just a different era of world, of ships, of World of War ships. It's kind of shown where we've gone. We've come from something like this to where we are now. The ship is more than capable, guys, and I can't stress that enough. This ship is more than capable of getting the results you want to get. But in the nature of World of Warships, in random battles, kind of being this petri dish of flip a coin if I get a good team, if I get a bad team, if it's a roll, if it's team roll or not. It's very inconsistent in getting phenomenal results. I think it is very consistent in getting good results and very consistent in getting absolute dog shit results. That's just the nature of, I not only think the Worcester, but I think light cruisers in general. We all know that if you play radar bino, it's phenomenal. Like risk to reward ratio is super high. It can definitely turn tides in combat, but at the same time, one well-placed battleship salvo is sending you back to port easy, and the Worcester is just like the Bino, but a little bit more tanky and forgiving. I think, I know the Minotaur has a super heal and can heal back more sit damage. I do think the hull of the Worcester is a little more sleek, and the Citadel doesn't go all the way up the side of the ship, so like that's kind of where I'm saying. But yeah. The USS Worcester, guys, it kind of encompasses it all as a final take on her. I think she is a great ship. I think if you apply the tips and tricks that I told you guys, you should be able to do well in her. But it is a process. It's one of those ships that it's really you have to use your brain and position right, or you are going to be having an early exit back to port because it's a light cruiser, guys. And playing light cruisers in today's meta are by far, without a question, the hardest ship class to play in the game right now, and there's no question with that, guys. So anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Remember to like and subscribe, leave some comments, tell me what you guys think, what your opinion is of the Worcester. I'd love to hear from you guys, and like always, I will catch you in the next video, guys. All right, peace out.